I love bats. I love every kind of bat. Oh, hello. Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to the very first episode of Catching Up with Chiropterans, the show all about bats, for bats, by bats. Frankie actually wrote this very first episode, so give it up for Frankie, the flying fox. I'd like to first talk about a few misconceptions that people tend to have about bats. First of all, bats are not rodents. I have nothing against rodents. I love mice. Mice are cute. Not so much when they chew through my entire collection of ABBA records, but we'll excuse that. Anyways, back on topic. Like I said, bats are not rodents. They are actually from their own order of mammals, the order Chiroptera, which actually comes from the Greek words for hand and wing. As you can see, bats are very much like ourselves, but they have this wonderful wing. It is actually a hand with extended finger bones. You can see right here, kind of just like our hand, except with this lovely wing membrane in between. Just like this. See? My bat. Awesome. Another misconception people have is that all bats drink blood. Well, some bats drink blood, mostly from livestock and chickens, not so much from people. We don't taste very good. But anyways, those bats aren't even found all over the world. They're found in some parts of Latin America. Really, it's not something most of us need to worry about. So, bats don't drink our blood. As cool as vampires are, bats are not vampires, or are they anything like vampires, besides the vampire bat. But they don't turn into people and go around sucking the blood of young women. What are some other misconceptions people have about bats? Oh, well, that they spread rabies. Well, like many other wild mammals, such as dogs, raccoons. Well, we don't have a lot of wild dogs around, do we? Regardless, many mammals you may find outdoors happen to carry rabies, and bats are no exception. Some bats do in fact carry rabies. However, bats aren't going around infecting people with rabies. I mean, do you know anyone who's ever had rabies? It's not very common. I do work with bats and handle bats sometimes. I, of course, am vaccinated, so it's not something I have to worry about. Bats are not scary creatures from hell. Pardon my language. They're animals just like any other animal. They contribute to their ecosystems. They're actually very important ecologically, agriculturally. Without bats, well, I wouldn't want to know what we would do without bats, to be honest. So bats are not blind. They actually have, well, depending on the species, fairly good vision. However, they are nocturnal. They fly at night. Without light, it is very difficult for anyone to see. Our eyes require light in order to see things. The lower the light, the worse we see. Bats actually have a very sophisticated way of navigating in the dark, finding where they roost, and also catching prey. So they have this, well, start off by saying this. There are two suborders of bats. We have the micro Chiroptera, very cute, very small. Actually, there are many much smaller than this. And these bats use true echolocation. These bats, the mega Chiroptera, your fruit bats, your flying foxes, the very, very sweet puppy dog bats, actually have very good vision and tend to forage before it gets too dark. So they use their eyes. So back to echolocation. These little guys right here make a very specific sounds at various frequencies, many that we cannot hear. Some that we can, but many that we cannot hear. And they use different frequencies for navigating. They send out a signal. It's directed, directly in front of them, a little bit out, and they can actually kind of see various obstacles and things that may be in the way. So these sounds go out, the sound waves bounce off of the objects and back, and they have these very, very nice ears that direct the sound in just the right way, and then their very, very impressive brains actually translate those sounds into images. So this bat could fly into a cave, and it could navigate through the cave. It can actually see the texture on the wall, and it can determine where the right place to land is. depending on other factors, such as temperature and moisture. So when these bats are hunting, because many of them are insectivores, meaning they eat insects, they will send out the signal. The signal will bounce off of insects that were flying in the air, and other times insects that are on the ground or on a leaf, perhaps. And these sound waves come back to the bat, and they see that insect. So they send out certain frequencies for finding the insects, and as they are approaching and getting closer, the sound waves actually become shorter. So the frequencies are higher. They're very high-pitched. And these bats can actually catch these insects in the air. Oftentimes they take their wing, they flip the insect up right into their mouth. It's fantastic. They're very, very good at what they do. So speaking of eating insects, many of these insects are pests. So this kind of goes into why bats are important to us. They eat many night-flying insects that would otherwise accumulate very large numbers and be very awful for us people. So we like bats. They're good for us. Before I get too far into that, because we'll be talking about various things that bats do in later episodes, I want to get into a little bit about the goals of the show. Basically, I'm here to educate people about bats, maybe entertain a little bit, basically convince the world that everyone should love bats. Bat conservation is very important, not only to me, but to all of us, because they're so important ecologically and agriculturally, pardon me. Bats eat a lot of pests that would otherwise destroy crops that are important to people. So they save a lot of money for the farmers, and we have wonderful crops. So thank you, bats. We love you. Anyways, I'm doing this show to get people interested in bats and educated about bats. It's a great show for children, parents, general bat enthusiasts, anyone who wants to learn more. Also, I really like it when people stare at my face and tell me how cute I am. Not really. Anyways, you may wonder how you can get involved. First up is watching my show. You can learn more. I'm going to often suggest various ways people can get involved in bat conservation. But to start off, I wanted to say that it's very simple and easy to get involved. It's as simple as going up to your neighbor saying, "Hey, hi neighbor, I like bats. Bats are cool. You should like bats too. Check out this show. Check out these websites that give you more information about bats." You could go on and on. They may slam the door in your face, but they may not. Regardless, in general, learning about bats and telling people about bats is the first step in assisting in bat conservation. So if you even mention bats once in a positive way, you've done a lot more than most people in terms of bat conservation. So I want to cut this short. I don't want to make the first episode too long. I feel like I've already rambled. But I do plan to do more episodes as I find time and find material. I'd like to do interviews with people that are involved in bat conservation and bat research. So if that happens to be you, or if you know someone, please send them my name. Also, I will be accepting photographs of bats, or people with bats, people who like bats, stories about bats, hopefully positive ones, and any other general bat questions, bat comments. Everything is welcome. And if I like your bat picture, your bat story, your question, I will gladly feature it on another episode. This show is for bats, but it's most importantly for people who care about bats and want to help bats. So you can send any pictures, stories, comments to my email. That is janeelizabethslater@gmail.com. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Happy batting!